I'd tear Josh up on the court. I'd play him for Dom and Pop being the national podcast of the Commanders. I'd play him for that.
Something's getting torn on that court for sure. Something's getting torn.
You know I got a sweet jump.
Huh? What's going on, man?
Son, glad you finally made it out of hair and makeup. You can get this thing going.
You know, it takes a while, but glad to be here. Glad to be dialed in, getting into this very exciting week. Obviously, the first headline, which we're not going to spend much time on at all. Frankly, I don't think we even need to spend any time on. But if Pop, you have a quick reaction, go ahead. Ron Rivera has been fired. We've been talking about he needs to be fired all season. He's finally been fired. You guys know how I feel about Ron Rivera. I'm not going to waste any of your time. Pop, you got anything you want to say? Or should we just keep it chugging here? Because there's a lot more exciting stuff to talk about.
Nah, definitely just to quickly touch on Ron. Obviously, you know, by all accounts, very, very classy guy. The players had great things to say about their time with him, you know, stand-up guy. But the results just weren't there at the end of the day. Whatever else you want to mix in there, we've already covered that. Go back and listen to the old pods in terms of our frustrations or not with Ron, but I do appreciate him as a man. I thought he was really classy in terms of what he said. And also, maybe a lead into your next point, but I did appreciate that Josh Harris was also a man of his word and given Ron the full season to, you know, prove
100%.
whether or not he could be the coach or not, and he honored that commitment, and I like to see that from the owner. So,
yep, I agree with you 100%. Good note about Ron the man. I've always said Ron the man, great. Ron the coach, mediocre. Ron the GM, awful. And unfortunately, Ron's not hired to just be a man. He's hired to be a coach and a GM, and the job that he was hired to do, he just did not do well. So
yeah,
you have to move
well
on,
said.
especially given the situation. And the Harris presser, man, that was awesome.
I thought so.
Awesome. I mean, the last time we heard from a owner of a Washington football team, he started the press conference with Happy Thanksgiving on January 6th.
Oh, my God.
That was the last time we heard from an owner. Through all the sale drama, through everything, he never spoke publicly once. That was the last time we heard from him. Happy Thanksgiving. Bruce Allen's been fired. Ron Rivera is going to be your new head coach. And then the duality. And I don't want to talk about he who must not be named at all, but just the shock of what we get to witness from Harris and the level of professionalism. And we're going to get into the list of GM candidates and head coach candidates and how we feel about all that. But even just the way he carried himself in the presser, I mean, I texted, we kind of have a few different group chats, and I texted one of them and I said, Harris is just diamond right now. He's on fire. And it's just, it was fantastic the way he handled the pressure, the way he handled himself. From some of the media people that were there, we heard, you know, everybody's seats were open, labeled ahead of time. Everybody was in their seat at 1 o'clock, and he walked out exactly at 1 p.m., started the press conference, no hijinks, no audio issues, no video issues. That was it. And just walked in and was like, what's up, guys? Let's talk. And he walked out. And he said, to be continued on the way out. And it just was it was awesome. That's all I got.
The level of respect, you know, that he showed the reporters in terms of how he addressed them is just completely different, right? With all of that, and you know, it's a shock to the system. It kind of feels like we were paying for our sins these last 25 years, and now's the reward of being in that situation for so long. Some people out there are going to pick things apart, try to make issues out of things. I think in the end of the day, I'm super happy with the way he handled that presser, what he said. And So far, what you're going to get into, we've got a Downey scouting report. He's going to scout the GM and the coaching candidates for the Commanders. So the scouting report continues. But,
Yep.
I think the initial news of bringing on Bob Myers and Rick Spielman to help him with the search. There's people say, oh, he's bringing on a basketball guy. What's up with that? That doesn't make sense. And he clearly
Ignorant.
explained it in his presser that, hey, he's not an X's and O's guy. He's not a football guy. I know that, but he's a great leader, and I'm, you know, leaning on him from that. And I got Spielman for the X's and O's. And I guess the word on Spielman is he's kind of done. He doesn't necessarily want to work those 20-hour days or 80-hour weeks that Josh referenced in his press conference. But to be in a consultant type role, like this to help them out in finding the right people, he seems interested in doing that kind of thing. So no, I think it's spot on. Look, the results, unfortunately, it's all we got to hang on to is right now is the process being done the right way. What the actual results will be, we don't know. We're going to pick a quarterback at number 2, more than likely. Will that player be a good player or not? We're going to argue about it all off season. We have no clue. It's a
Yep.
flip of the coin, right? But the key thing is the process that's being used to make those decisions. Is that process being set up to do it the right way? And that's all we can ask for right now.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more on that. For the background, Bob Myers, um, GM of the Warriors, per NFL.com, the headline, architect of the Warriors dynasty. So identified Steve Kerr, a never before head coach, as the head coach there. He's one of the greatest head coaches in the modern era of basketball, or in my generation, at least. And I think you got to put him in an all-time conversation, not as the greatest, but as one of among the greats. Um, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, neither highly rated guys, identified that, put that together, changed the way the sport was played forever. Um, and if you think I'm being dramatic, go to your local court and see how many kids are driving to the hole versus how many kids are pulling up from three. End a conversation on that. A little off topic, and Rick Spielman, obviously several years with the Vikings, an NFL guy, lots of relationships, knows a lot of people, knows the X's and O's, and the combination of the two. Josh Harris essentially said in his presser, he said Bob Myers' job is, I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially said his job is to make sure we build a winner, because that guy, all he does is build winners. So he is like the consultant of winning. That he's president
Right.
of winning operations is essentially his title, because it's exactly what he knows how to do. He knows how to build a staff. He knows how to delegate. He knows how to set up a winner. And that is the polar opposite of what we've dealt with before, which is just it's amazing. It's
Well,
amazing to have these
some of the
high
best,
level guys come in.
but maybe I'll speak from a bit of experience, right? Some of the best bosses that I've worked in and worked for weren't really necessarily subject matter experts in the
Yeah,
work. That's what they had us for. But they were
exactly.
really great team builders, really great motivators, and had a really great BS meter, and just and I think that you can have somebody at the top of the organization like that knows sports, that is competitive, that relies on really good people to do their jobs really well and can monitor that. And I could see,
Exactly.
it seems like Bob might be positioned for a longer term role, whereas Spielman seems to be just for defining this, and probably may not be around as long, but we'll see. But I think having people like that in the organization is great. Would I want him deciding who we pick at number 2? Absolutely not. But
Yeah,
I think am I cool with him being part of the selection committee? And the committee consists of Magic Johnson as well, and a couple of the other owners in the group. And of course, I think Josh Harris is going to be the one that makes that final decision. He made a point to say, "I'm going to be directly involved, and it's on me," and he was pretty clear about that. And like I said, I think it's from my perspective, it's an A+ in terms of how it's
Has to
been
be.
handled so far. And what you're getting about to get into right now is the most exciting part, and that's the fact that we're getting interviews with all these. I mean, you're in a situation where if you look at that list, not to steal any of your thunder, I'm not going to name any names, but you look at
You
that
can name a few
candidate
names if
list.
you want.
I'm not going to. You're going to do it because you're much better at it than me. That's the main reason. Um, but you look at a list of candidates. I mean, your second, third, fourth choice would probably be a really good,
Yeah.
get. So that's exciting. The fact that there's no way previous owner could have, and we don't like saying his name, could have retracted that list of candidates. No way.
Well,
Just think of that for a minute in terms of where we are right now versus where we were. There is no way he would have been able to attract that list of candidates.
how
Zero
long ago
chance.
does it feel? How long ago does it feel when you look at this list of candidates that we have now? It feels like decades ago when Scott Turner was fired and we were looking for a new offensive coordinator and we were all just sitting there, sick to our stomach, going, "Oh, it's going to be Pat Shurmur. That's the best we could get. It's going to be Pat Shurmur." How long ago does it feel when those were the caliber of coaches we were discussing bringing into this organization compared to these names that I'm about to rattle off now? It's night and day. And of course, we ended up with EB, whole different thing. But that was the expectation where it was. And here's what we're dealing with now. I mean, this is like a list of candidates that to me, it's like it's a dream. It's like, was this guy going through Twitter, going through it? So do you want to do GM first, Pop, or do you want to do head coaching, or do you want to do
I
both
think
and
GM makes
then
sense, and,
break it
and I think
down?
you can
GM
you
first?
can let's get to it. Yeah.
All right. I was getting to it. But GM, Kansas City assistant GM, Mike Borgonzi, already been interviewed at the time of recording this podcast. San Francisco assistant GM, Adam Peters, currently being interviewed at the time of this podcast as we're recording. Philly assistant GM, Alec Halaby, Cleveland assistant GM, Glenn Cook, Chicago assistant GM, Ian Cunningham. You may be scratching your head going, Chicago? Really? He's a Baltimore guy. Spent lots of years in the Baltimore front office. And then Dallas VP of Player Personnel, Will McClay, who I think is a much sexier option than I think it's kind of getting thrown to the wayside. But you look at the person, has Dallas made a bad personnel decision in the last
We got a good
however many
roster.
years? They've got a great roster, a fantastic roster. The roster's not the problem in Dallas, put it that way. Um, so that's the list for GM options. Pop, right now, the number one name that's being floated around is Adam Peters. And that's a guy that all offseason you wanted. That's pretty much the hot, young NFL executive being touted as the next great NFL front office mind. He's currently sitting down. I bet there's some red meat and some shellfish involved with this interview. I bet there's a couple bottles of wine that are probably more than the mortgage. I'd bet they're really getting down to it. Maybe a couple games
Right?
of hoops in the backyard at Josh Harris's mansion, right? What were you going to say?
We didn't even break that down. That the interviews are being done in Josh Harris's home in Miami. And if you haven't seen pictures of the place, look it up. It's pretty
Decent.
incredible. I'd love to just spend a weekend there. I think he's got to have Dom and Pop down.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
just
come
think
on.
it's got to happen. I
Little
mean, the
fan
number
outreach.
one father son bi-coastal DC sports podcast in the nation has got to be
There
there.
it is. There it is.
But
That's a great
yeah,
Italian
no, it's
American.
exciting. The names you mentioned, there's a lot of great options there. Yeah, you're right. Peters seems to be um, the leading popular choice, I'd say at this point.
100%.
Anyone with a pedigree from 49ers, Ravens, those kind of clubs, I'm going to be all right with. I guess
Yeah.
Peters also has a connection with Bob Myers. They go back. So there's a method to the madness that could be occurring here.
Yep. So they went to high school in the same district and I guess knew each other around that time. And then they also went to UCLA together. And essentially, my take, I think, is Harris identified Peters as the guy. He wanted Peters, and he said, "What do I need to do? How can I position myself to offer an advantage in us getting Peters over some other options?" And then Myers came up. He knows Myers, obviously an NBA guy, and he goes, "Oh, this guy knows this guy. This guy also can really help me down the road, etc." And the whole thing sets up. That's how these kind of things happen, right? And I don't know. Maybe it's a different order of operations, but that's just kind of my hunch, given what Harris is looking for. Um, and I mean, I'm seeing on Twitter, and even just from hearing reports from JP and how he was kind of talking about it on the radio, not to dismiss these other candidates, and we can get into them a little bit, but at the moment of this recording, and things change fast, who knows? Maybe the dinner's really awkward and it sucks. It sounds like both sides, San Francisco and Washington, are preparing for it to be Peters. It sounds like.
Yeah, and there, I
And
mean that.
where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, and that's true, and it's definitely building up and feeling that way. I mean, there are other candidates like the Eagles assistant GM that's supposed to be coming in, the Browns assistant
Yeah,
GM supposed to be coming in. So there's a long list of names, but Peters seems to be. I mean, by the time this podcast comes out, we might know. Maybe we
yeah,
should put it
could
out
happen
early so it
fast.
doesn't get stale. We'll talk about that after, but um, if it's Peters or if it's one of these other guys, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I'm going to trust the process. I'm not.
There it is.
I haven't reached a point of like being all in on one of these candidates. I don't quite honestly know enough about each of them as individuals. I know the organizations they come from and the success they've had there. And yeah, I think why don't we talk a little bit about coaching?
Yeah, yeah, we can get into
Like the
coaching.
breaking
One,
news there, son. That's great.
there it is. One quick note on the GM thing. There may be a situation where we have a general manager and a head of football operations. So there could be multiple of these
Yes.
guys getting hired. They might be
Yeah.
assembling. And can you imagine a guy like Adam Peters? You give him the head of football operations title because he's already was going to be promoted to general manager in San Francisco, so he gets that step up. And then a guy like Alec Hallaby, you give him the general manager title, and he's only assistant GM in Philly. And all of a sudden now you've got the two best guys working together. It sounds great. That's a little bit of like Madden roster construction versus real life, but that's just something to keep an
I mean,
eye
I
out
think
for, I
the
think.
structure makes a lot of sense. Whether the names are the perfect or the fit or not, that's fine. But
Yeah,
I do think that's where we very well could land. I
yeah,
think
you
there's
could
going to
see
be,
multiple.
I mean, it's part of him getting a bump up, right? Would be having a
Yeah,
GM reporting to him. So, yeah, I think that's plausible.
yeah, it's very, very possible. There's not one guy on this list I don't like. Peters would be my first choice. Hal would be probably my second. Let's get into the head coaches. We have some good stuff to talk about there too, and some stuff related to GM as well. I don't know if you know all these connections here, Pop, but that's what the Dami Scouting Report is here for.
That's
Head
it. That's
coach.
what I rely on you for.
There will only be one head coach. That much we know for
Let's
certain.
hope so.
Unless we're really about to change the world here, there will only be one head coach. So far, these requests have been put out for interview. Only one request has been accepted at this moment in time, and I will note that. However, all these guys are in the playoffs right now, so they have more important things to handle at this very moment. So you have Detroit offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. You've heard his name on this podcast before. You've heard his name on Twitter. It's the leading candidate. It's the guy everybody wants. You've got Detroit defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. He was like main character on Hard Knocks a couple years ago. A lot of fun, leader of men, great guy. You got Dallas, excuse me, defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. You know how good that Dallas defense has been. He is the only candidate so far that has accepted that interview request. And this is a guy that's been around the league for forever. And there's not a single person in the NFL that speaks badly of Dan Quinn. And this is the guy who said, hey, that Micah Parsons guy, he might not be a middle linebacker. He might be better off rushing the passer. Just to note that. Baltimore defensive coordinator Mike McDonald, Houston offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, another name you've heard us talk about. LA Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, formerly in Washington. and Baltimore assistant head coach slash defensive line coach Anthony Weaver. These are all guys that currently are confirmed candidates. We'll see if they all accept their interview requests. I imagine most of them will. A quick note before you give your reactions, Pop. Bobby Slowick is boys with Adam Peters. They have a relationship. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. And when we get into, I think maybe I might ask you for a little quick top three just off the top of your head, or if you have a favorite
Right.
candidate or something like that. But when we get into that, you'll see I might be a little sauced about that if we hire Adam Peters. But go ahead, Pop. Tell me how you're feeling. Maybe give me some of your top candidates. Maybe some guys you wouldn't consider. Where are you at?
Well, you didn't mention another top guy. It's you know um, out there that I don't know that it's officially. We've heard some things that they might have gotten interviews or not, but Jim Harbaugh, is he in the mix? It's an
I think
interesting
he
one.
has been reached out to, but he
I
was a
think
little
he has
busy
been reached
yesterday.
out to.
So,
Yeah, I mean, Harbaugh's a guy I would say I'm very highly interested in.
wow, didn't
I'm
expect that
not
from you.
I'm not too, if he can accept the structure that we just talked about, right?
Fair,
He's
fair,
gonna
fair.
have to be, he's gonna have to accept that. But a battle of the Betways of the brothers could be pretty exciting. And at the end of the day, he's a heck of a coach. And I like the style of football that he can bring to the table. He is an ex NFL quarterback, so I think he knows a thing or two about being a quarterback as well in terms of developing and bringing a young quarterback along. And I think he's gotten a lot out of the Michigan quarterback situation as well.
McCarthy, yeah.
Um, I think quickly, I'm not going to go through all the names. Who I like best is Slowick, McDonald, and Johnson. And I'm
Yeah,
kind of, my tingles with McDonald. I don't know. There's something about it, what he's done with the Baltimore defense, that coming from that program. I got a little tingle there, but any one of those three guys I'd be pretty happy with, or Harbaugh as
yeah,
well, I think. Slowick's really interesting, especially having a little bit of a tie. Maybe we finally get one of the 2013 coaching staff back in the building.
yeah.
But
The
I'm
3 and
it.
13,
What's amazing
2013 coaching
is
staff, by the way.
what's amazing. Yeah, that's a good point. What's amazing if you look at this though, it feels like a deep quarterback draft.
Yeah,
Like it's amazing the number of quality candidates that are available out there, both for the GM position and the coaching position. And it's given that we've had so many searches, especially for the coaching position that we've gone through over the past 25 years, we were always just grasping or going for that big name, because
yeah,
because we flew the jet in and offered a pile of cash, and to be able to have, like I said, there's almost anyone in the top five you'd be pretty happy with. So that's my take on
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think even a name like Dan Quinn, who does not quite make my top three, if you told us at the
Dan, I don't
beginning
want
of
anything
this
to do
year
with
that he
Dan
was going to
Quinn.
be the head coach next year, I know you don't like him because he's a Cowboy, but
No, it
if
has
you
nothing
told
to
us
do with
that,
it. He was a head coach already and he failed.
it happens.
No,
But if you told us he was going to be a head coach, I think the majority of the fan base would be pretty excited. I think people that cover the team would be pretty excited. And
this guy would.
that's not even a guy that's too high up on the list. Pop wouldn't, which is what's most important here. But we got one, two, three, four, five of the eight names. I guess if you include Harbaugh in that, five of the eight names are defensive minded head coaches. I don't know if you want to make too much out of that. I think that's just kind of the nature of the market. And I think like you talk about maybe getting the offensive
Harbaugh is
coordinator.
off. As you put him as defensive minded.
No, I said he's offense. I
Okay,
didn't
all
count
right.
Harbaugh
Sorry,
towards that. Yeah. Um,
my bad.
his brother is defensive, but he is offense. Uh, I think I think that's more just to do with the candidates that are available, and I think they're trying to cast a very wide net, and just see, talk to a guy like Dan Quinn, who's been a head coach before. Talk to a guy like Raheem Morris, who's been a head coach before, and then also talk to a guy like Ben Johnson, who might project to be like a Mike McDaniel type. Talk to a guy like Bobby Slowick, who again, Mike McDaniel type of guy. What I like that they're not doing is calling up Matt Nagy down in Kansas City or calling up the offensive coordinator in Miami and kind of repeating that same mistake we made with Eric Bieniemy, where we're going to go get a guy that hasn't called plays before and we're going to make him the guy because he has an offensive coordinator title. Remember that? Didn't work out well. I like that we're not doing that. My top three, I'm going to try to wrap this up quick because we're running a little long here. My top three would probably be Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick. Honestly, 1A, 1B. I take either. I like Bobby Slowick. I might even give him the slight edge here because of the Peters connection. If Peters likes him, that's a good sign in my opinion. So I would be cool with that. Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, and I'll go with you. I like McDonald at number 3, and I am pretty fired up about McDonald. I think he's a great leader. He has turned that defense, which frankly I don't want to say it's a lot of no names because I don't want to be disrespectful, but I mean their best edge rusher is Jadeveon Clowney, who was drafted in the Bush administration. It feels like, right? Like
Right.
they are just a bunch of guys playing as a unit, very fired up, great leader. You can see the way Ravens fans on Twitter panic every time that gets announced that Mike McDonald might be our coach, and I think that tells you everything you need to know about
Right.
that guy. But you do have that Bobby Slowick, Adam Peters connection. Bobby Slowick did draft number 2 overall last year, got CJ Stroud. That guy's been pretty decent. Just something to keep in mind. Just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I just got like one quick comment. There is I do think at the end of the day, circumstances sometimes factor into these decisions, and you don't want to make
Sure.
a short term decision. But being that we're in position for that number 2 pick, and it's gonna be a quarterback, let's face it.
Yeah.
Everyone can argue for offensive linemen all they want. It's gonna be a quarterback. Having an offensive coach who can develop said quarterback, I think, is probably where they're gonna lean at the end of the day.
Yeah. Keep them
Yeah.
in the same system because look at this now. If Bobby Slowick becomes our head coach, CJ Stroud has to learn a new system in only his second year in the league. That kind of situation. I don't put too much weight, but something to keep in mind. I like that. Let's get into the other big news. Well, I say the other, but the big news for the week, which is the NFL playoffs are finally here. We don't have to watch the Commanders anymore. We can finally get into Wild Card Weekend. Let's get into it. So we'll give the Bada Bets recap real fast. Pop 4-1 in Week 18, 48, 39, and 4 for the season. I mean, come on. 9 games over 500. Cash. Pretty damn good. Dom went 3-2, 50, 37, and 4. 13 games over 500
I mean,
on the
Portnoy,
season.
what are you doing? How come we're not
We
on the
should have.
payroll yet?
How come we're not putting real Scarolo on these picks? That's what I mean, I'd have to fill
Absolutely.
out a tax form at this point. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But anyways, that's the regular season Bada. We're getting into the postseason Bada now. So
That's
what
a
we're gonna
phenomenal
do?
record, son.
Thank you.
Phenomenal
2
record.
great records for
But
us. I
it
think both of
continues.
us
I can
had.
still catch it. Continues into the postseason.
We might have to check the tape from last year to see if we did that. I don't know. We might have to check the tape. I don't know about that.
Hey, it's a new year, new
Here's
rules.
the bottom line. Last year, I think we both had losing records. This year, smashing over 500.
Hey,
Next year, we're not going to get a pick wrong.
no different with you growing up. I have liberty to change the rules as I see fit.
I guess so. But anyways, let's get into this real fast.
Yeah,
We're
we
going to
got
get
to
through this
move
kind of
here.
rapid fire. So what we're going to do
So,
is we're going to do our brackets, and then we're also going to do what we're doing for this week, the bottom bets. So basically, I'm going to call out the matchup. You're going to tell me who you think's going to win and if you think they're going to cover, and then we'll get into the second round of our brackets. Go on, so and so forth. You got it, Pop?
got it.
I know I had to explain that one to you a couple times at the pregame podcast, so I
Yeah,
want to make sure you
yeah.
got that.
That's exactly how that went.
Anyways, so first game, the Ravens don't have a game. They're good. They're moving on. Game number 2 on my list here. Hold on, let me check the schedule. Okay, never mind. We're going a little different order here. We got the Browns on Saturday. We got the Browns, the 5 seed, at the Texans, the 4 seed, 4:30 Eastern time, NBC and Fubo. Make sure you get that Fubo login sorted out. The Browns are 2.5-point favorites there. What do you like, Pop?
I'm going with Joe Flacco and those Cleveland Browns right there.
Yep, me too. I like the Browns and I like them to cover. Uh, the next game we got up here is the Dolphins at the Chiefs. Will be at 8 o'clock exclusively on Peacock Pop. You're welcome for that login, by the way. You're welcome. I got you
I'm
covered.
gonna need that login. I'm gonna
Don't
need that.
mention it, man. I got it
Um,
covered. The Chiefs are 4-point favorites here.
I like the Chiefs in this one, and I do like them to cover.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'm going to take them to cover. I don't love that pick, but I just can't see the Chiefs losing in the first round.
I think
Um,
they're gonna get it together in the
yeah,
in the off season. I think they're gonna be better than what they've been.
cold
Vegas
weather
obviously
game.
feels that way too.
Yeah, cold weather game too. Miami's kind of been
I heard
tapering off.
somebody said this is the coldest game per the forecast in Dolphins history.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow, that's
yeah.
that's tough. Yeah, so
You don't
definitely going
get
to
that
take the
kind of
Chiefs there.
information in any podcast.
Oh,
You
you
know,
don't. You definitely
the
don't. So then
research, the
you got
research.
Sunday night. You got the Steelers at the Bills. Can't believe the Steelers made the playoffs, man. Shout out Mike Tomlin. At 1
Sunday at
p.m.
1 o'clock. Yeah,
Yeah, Sunday at 1 o'clock. I did say Sunday.
you said
And the
Sunday night.
Steelers, the Steelers are +10, so Bills 10-point favorites there. What do you think, Pop?
I'm going to say Bills win, Steelers cover.
It's exactly what
So
I was
pick
gonna say.
Steelers and Nevada, but Bills advance. I don't see them.
Ex-
I think Steelers are going to play them tough.
exactly what I was gonna say. So then after that, you've got the Packers at the Cowboys. Cowboys are the 2 seed, and the let's see here, the 7.5-point favorites. What do you like there, Pop?
I like the Cowboys. The Packers are a nice story, but I think they're going to roll them.
Yeah, it's early. Look out for Green Bay next year to maybe be able to play these types of games, but I think it's a little early for Jordan Love and this operation. I'm going Cowboys as well. I think they're hot.
We might
Kind of
need an
reminds me
edit.
of that
I don't
Tampa
like
Bay
saying I
matchup.
like the Cowboys. I'm picking the Cowboys. I don't like the Cowboys.
This guy, man, I'm picking the. We got our national pundit hat on now. All right, we gotta wear multiple hats. I'm picking the Cowboys here. Uh, Next game, you got the Rams at the Lions. 8 p.m. Eastern time on regular NBC. Lions are 3-point favorites here. There's been some talk between, some murmuring with some of our insiders about the Lions maybe being a little fraudulent, maybe losing if they played the Rams. What do you think, Pop? You gonna zag here?
Some of our insiders have said that. I think the Rams have accomplished the goal. I picked them as my turnaround team for the year. They've accomplished the objective, but I think the Lions take this one, especially at home. I think they're gonna go on a little bit of a run here. I got Lions winning that one.
When was the last time? I know you don't know the
Redemption
year.
for
I don't
golf.
either. When was the last time the Lions had a home game in the playoffs? That has to be
I
forever
don't
ago. I
know.
mean, maybe one of
Yeah,
those years was Stafford, but it's been forever. I'm taking the Lions as well here. I think there's just too big of a talent gap. And then
pretty
I
cool.
guess it'll
Cool
be
story. It's Stafford versus golf. There, that's pretty
very
cool.
very cool story. I guess the Lions
Yeah,
have banned Stafford jerseys from the stadium,
nice.
which is
I
pretty
like that.
wild. They say Lions fans cannot wear their Stafford jerseys. So
I like
it's
that.
interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. But Monday night, you got the Eagles you got the Buccaneers at home facing the Eagles, or Eagles at Buccaneers. Eagles are 3-point favorites here. What do you like, Pop?
I got the Eagles. Not winning and covering.
I'm zagging. I got Tampa. I got Tampa winning. I got Tampa covering. I'll
Okay.
take the 3 points. I'll take Tampa at home. And I will take Philly limping its way out of the playoffs because they just got spanked by the New York Giants. So you cannot tell me that the Bucks are not 3 points better than them right now. Which is a crazy thing to say because I was banging on this table a few months ago saying the Eagles are the best team in football and stop talking about the damn Kansas City Chiefs. I
They're
was right at
reeling,
the
but
time.
I think maybe a road game is just what the doctor's order. Doctor ordered. To get out of there, get out of Eagle, get out of what now is probably a hostile environment for there. it's a risk
Yeah.
saying they can turn things around because they've been on a major slide, but I just got to believe they're better than what they've been looking like.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. I think AJ Brown injury, Jalen Hurts injury. I'm a little concerned about all those things. Yeah. Anyways, so we can get to our brackets now. So round two of the bracket, I guess the AFC will be the same for us. The NFC will be different. So I'm just going to call out the AFC games to start. We got it would be the Browns at the Ravens at home. What do you like here, Pop?
Ravens.
Yeah, I tell you what, I might feel differently after I
I
see
like that
how that
matchup.
Houston Cleveland games go. I love that matchup. I think that is a pick 'em. And I think if Flacco is still hot at that point, I wouldn't call you crazy for taking the Browns, but I'm going to take the Ravens as well. I just can't. I can't zag that hard, but I am a little bit worried about the Ravens coming in cold after what happened last time that happened. Kansas City will be at Buffalo. What do you like there?
I'm going to take the Chiefs.
I got the Bills. I think the Bills are a better football team right now, but that will be a hell of a game. The home field. I'm going to give the edge to Buffalo there. It's the first time they've had that advantage. So the other side of the bracket, I have San Francisco versus Tampa. I guess you would have San Francisco versus Philly. So
Right.
I'm taking San Francisco there. What are you taking?
49ers.
Yeah, easy. And then we have Detroit against Dallas. I got Detroit. What do you got?
I got the Lions as well.
I think they need that redemption for that Thursday night game a couple of weeks ago. I think if you think Dan Campbell's not just going to be showing that clip of the offensive lineman reporting to the ref on loop all week and just throwing F bombs around, I think you got another
Jerry might
thing
have
coming.
to make that payment a little richer that week.
Oh man, I definitely got Detroit there. So then that would leave us with I would have the Bills taking the trip down to Baltimore to play the Ravens, and I have the Ravens winning that game. You would have the Chiefs taking the trip down to Baltimore, and this is where it gets interesting, Pop. Do the Ravens
Ravens.
beat the Chiefs and make wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Your Kansas City Chiefs, your greatest team in football history
Hey, I
this
picked them
year.
right last year. I still think they're a really good team, but obviously they've got some flaws.
Yeah.
Going into Baltimore, Baltimore's been rolling. Hopefully, well, I don't, not that I care, but given my
You
picks,
can
I
care.
care
It's okay.
that they won't lose momentum from the time off. I just think that team they're it this year.
Yeah. I'd agree, which is what scares me about picking them to win the Super Bowl because it's almost never the consensus team that you think is going to do it. Uh, and then we have San Fran at Detroit on or Detroit at San Fran, excuse me, on the NFC side. I'm taking San Fran there. Talent
I'm
gap,
going
too big
chalk
a
as
talent
well. I
gap.
think they've been clearly the two best teams in the NFL this year, consistently from beginning to end. And I think they're clearly the two best teams in each of their conferences.
Yeah.
Teams got to go
So
through their home crowds. They've got really good home field advantages. They both do. I got 49ers Ravens in the Super Bowl.
so do I, and that begs the question, Pop. Do the Ravens do it in Lamar's first Super Bowl ever during his MVP season? Or does San Francisco get revenge for that regular season trouncing Kyle Shanahan finally hoist that trophy? Brock Purdy, Super Bowl champion, Christian McCaffrey,
Didn't they
probably
play in the
Super Bowl
Super Bowl once
MVP.
before as
They
well?
did
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Flacco and Kaepernick in Baltimore won.
right.
That was the
So
whole the
there's
lights
double
went out.
revenge on the stake. I really think at the end of the day, this is a game that can go either way. I think that even though the Ravens blew the doors off the Niners the last time they played, I don't know that that's reflective. But I am going to go with the Ravens. Our insiders are going to hate me for this, and I got them winning 31-21 against the Niners in the Super
There you
Bowl.
go. I got the Niners winning 28-24. I think I just can't get over it with the Ravens, man. I'll call it what it is. I'm picking with my heart. I'm picking with
There
my
you go.
heart. I can't do it. I can't do it. I want to do it. I promised our insider I would root for the Ravens to get the 1 seed, and I did that, and I did not promise a day past that.
The one
So
thing that would kind of hurt is they tie us in Super Bowl wins.
San Francisco would,
No,
or
the
the
Ravens
Ravens.
would. That'd be their
Yeah, no,
third.
I can't root for that.
Can't have that.
Especially because all three have actually happened during my lifetime.
So
It's
we didn't
gonna
say it at the beginning.
kill
We
me.
probably should have, but if you've been with us this long, you deserve it. Love to hear from you. Love to hear your brackets. Compete against Dom and Pop. We'll keep score. I think we usually
Yeah,
do a point system: 1 point first round, 2 points second, 3 points third. So maybe 5 points for a Super Bowl winner. It's something like that. But if you want to compete against us, we'll put some stuff out on Twitter. Submit your brackets. That'd be fun. Just for bragging rights. We
yeah,
get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll talk prizes. Not there yet, but
there it is.
make sure you submit your brackets, and again, we'll advertise that on the various platforms.
There it is. Yeah, once we're hanging out with Josh Harris shooting hoops in his backyard,
I
Pop
want to go
draining
to that
mid-range
house.
jumpers. Oh man, I want to live in that house.
Oh,
Does he need a roommate?
I'd tear
Does
him
he
up
need a roommate?
I'd tear Josh up on the court. I'd
I
play
think
him for
I.
Dom and Pop being the national podcast of the Commanders. I'd play him
Hey
for
man,
that.
something's getting torn on that court for sure. Something's getting torn. All
I
right,
got a
man.
sweet jumper. I
Yo,
may not look like it,
the jumper's
but I
sweet.
gotta.
I'm worried about the lateral movement that
Uh,
leads up to the jumper. That's what I'm worried
I'll
about.
brace up.
I'm worried about the cut. Anyways, let's wrap this thing up, guys. Without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thanks for another great week, guys.